If we don't allocate time to be focused, you're not going to be focused. And a mind that is not focused is an inefficient mind. It's a fact. Until right now, this very moment, contractors have always been on their own, not as tradespeople, but being alone and knowing how to take their business to the next level. They call us working class. They call us blue collar. They say that we don't have the smarts to become the business owner that we're meant to be. That is such bullshit. You have the ability. You're more than any of that. The question really is, where do you get the insights that you need specific to contracting to systemize your business so you can get your profits to pay for your freedom? I'm Andrew Houston. I'm going to show you how to make more profits, how to get more control, how to get more freedom in the simplest, quickest way possible without any of that bullshit. Welcome to the No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. Listen up, level up, and if you learn something, like the video, subscribe to the channel, change your business, change your life. All right, Rockstars, we are here with another No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. I am super pumped about this one. It's going to be short. It's going to be sweet. It's going to be to the point, but we are going to be nailing this time hack that has been literally a game changer for myself, for my champion CEO, family members, and I want to make it a hack for you, like right now. We're talking about getting 75% of this hack done, like real time, live, as you're listening on this podcast. So I'm looking at the clock right now. Let's give this no more than like 10 minutes for you to get this time hack. Okay, I call it the 50-10 sprint. And let me see if this is the right podcast for you. If you're struggling with time, if you're struggling with focus, if you're struggling with getting shit done, you're at the right place here, especially if you're a contractor. Okay, why a contractor? Because that's who we help. We help contractors. We help them become profitable. We get their profits to pay for their freedom. So if that interests you, then stick with me. If not, then stick off me and get off the podcast, because I don't want to waste your time, especially since this is a freaking time hack topic that I'm going to be covering off. So here's the thing, right? One of the biggest challenges that we have with being an owner of a contracting business is that, you know, I say this all the time, you're like a Hydra, right? You're like a seven-headed dragon, right? We've got all these different hats that we have to wear. And no matter if you are a two-person team, a three-person team, you know, worse situations that you're by yourself, or if you got 100 people, being an owner of a contracting company naturally attributes the fact that we have to wear multiple hats. Okay, we're not out to be the Google. We're not out to be an Apple. We're not in the sense of we don't have 10,000 people where we can, you know, give every little role, every micro role to different people. Right now, we do want to build a business, a contracting business that's scalable, that's profitable, so that it's not all on your shoulders. Because the reality is that if it is all on your shoulders, if something was to happen to you, well, that's like the highest risk situation. I'd hate for it to be that case, but we have to control our time. Okay, time is one of the things that gets robbed from us unless we protect it. It's one of those things that if we don't get control of it ourselves, other people are going to control our time. And in a lot of cases, I've said this before, that, you know, if you don't control your time, then other people are going to control it. And if they're controlling it, then you might be doing things that aren't going to help you, but they're, you know, in the best interest of them. And I'm not saying that other people are malicious, but if you, as an example, if you let somebody come through your door every day, like suppliers, right? Like knock, knock, knock on your door. I'm not saying it's probably happening too much. It could be a phone call nowadays, but it's probably not happening too much live because of this COVID situation, but it's happening in some form or fashion. You're getting interrupted either by your staff, by your suppliers, by your clients. If we don't allocate time to be focused, you're not going to be focused. And a mind that is not focused is an inefficient mind. It's a fact. I know you guys are smart. I know you guys have actually great memories. And how do I know that? I know that, when I look at, the contractors that come in to get help from us, right, and take their business to the next level, to double, to triple their profits. Notice I didn't say sales, right? Because sales is like one of the last things. We got to focus in on profitability. But anyways, that's another topic. I don't want to digress. Is if we don't protect those and protect ourselves from these interruptions that are going to happen. So here's one of the strategies. It's not the only strategy, but here's one of the key strategies. I call it the 50-10 sprint. And the 50-10 sprint works as a sprint, okay? 50 minutes, I'm going to break it down for you. And literally in the next like 5 or so minutes, we're going to like walk through and you're going to get 75% of this done, like right now, okay? So, and what a great use of your time, right? Anyways, let's see what happens. So the 50-10 sprint works like this. It's an allocation. The numbers represent time. Okay, so 50 plus 10 is 60. So we're talking, in this case, a 1 hour time slot. Now you can apply this to a 30-minute time slot. Okay, maybe with the same ratio here, but we're going to focus here today on just a 1 hour slot. Okay, and it's 1 hour of sprinting. Okay, so you remember back in the day of high school, right? And right, we had to go and sprint, right? Back in the day, or public school. In sports, the purpose of the sprint was, a sprint isn't like you're running and running and running and running forever, because you'd burn out, right? Just like a racehorse, right? Like, sprint to the finish. It doesn't mean sprint the whole race, because the horse is going to burn out. So a sprint is all about getting the maximum amount of progress. You call it production. I call it progress within a very specific period of time. Now notice though, with a sprint, right, like a runner, when they run and they sprint, like say it's a 100-meter dash, they call it a dash or a sprint, right? At the end of that, picture like this person that's running or sprinting, and they're sprinting as hard as possible. At the end of it, what do? At the end of that race, they calm down, they relax, they slow down, right? So the first part of it is going super, super hard, super focused for 50 minutes. And what's the 10 minutes for? The 10 minutes is the cool down. The 10 minutes is to take that 10 minutes and reflect, hey, how much did I get done? What did I accomplish? What's the next steps? Do I have to work on this more? Because we need to pause between when we sprinted and before we move on to something else. Otherwise, if we just sprint and sprint and sprint and sprint, and your day probably feels like that. Like sprint could be like phone call, phone call, phone call, phone call, do a quote. Okay, go see a job site. Like if all we do is sprint, guys, you're going to burn out. Okay. If you don't take time to reflect, and that's where that 10 minutes comes in, it's probably one of the most important times out of the sprint. Okay. Then you're in trouble. Okay. So we're looking at this 50-10 sprint as such. Okay. Now I'm going to break down the steps for you. Okay. We're going to go through this step by step. So this is all about being focused. So there's a few key steps that we have to go through. I'm going to get you to do 75% of these steps. So out of these 3 steps, I'm going to get you to do 2 of them right now. Okay. So if you're ready to do this with me, get a pen and paper. If you don't have a pen and paper, you can actually do this as you're driving in your truck, or if you're in the office or wherever you're at. Okay. This is only going to be like a 10-minute podcast or so. So let's get this thing rock and rolling. So now that you understand the concept of the 50-10 sprint, okay, the very first step, and this is what I want you to do, the very first step right now that we're going to do is I need you to pick one area. Now, when I talk about one area, you don't, a runner that's sprinting, like he's not sprinting on this track, that track, all within the same sprint. No, they're doing, the 100, meter dash or 100-meter sprint, or, whatever that distance is. It's very specific. It's on a specific field, not 10 fields. We want to do the same thing, okay, with this. And to do that, I want you to pick an area of your business that needs attention, okay? Now you might say, hey, coach, every area of my business needs attention. Okay. I want you to think of the area with my acronym of ICE. And if you haven't listened to my previous podcast when I've brought this up, I'll tell you what it is. ICE, ICE, stands for what area of your business right now that if you focus in on, you could have the greatest impact. What area, the C stands for in ICE, that's going to get that you have the most confidence in, okay? Confidence in gathering the right amount of data, gathering the right information, the confidence that you can, skill set to do this. And the E stands for with the least amount, okay? With the least amount of energy and effort, okay? So that's what we're looking at right now. So I'm going to use the example today of quoting, okay? Because quoting is a key ingredient that every contractor has to do, and it's always one of those ones that we never have enough time for. We seem like we're always behind the 8 ball. Now there's a whole bunch of other areas as well, guys, but today I'm just going to use quoting. Again, you pick the area that's going to have the greatest impact with the ICE analogy, right? Impact, confidence, okay, and the least amount of energy. for you. Okay, so I want you to pick that right now. I'll give some other areas. So we talked about quoting. Maybe it's hiring. Maybe it's project management. Like maybe it's like, I've got to start this job. I got to get my crews working on this job, or maybe it's multiple jobs, right? Or maybe it's that you got to go and have a meeting with, let's say, your suppliers to do some price negotiating. Okay, so it'd be getting better pricing, right? Maybe it's actually on the admin side, like, hey, we need to put some systems in place regarding vacations. Whatever that area is, pick it right now. Okay, just think about which area, just what comes to mind that going to have the greatest impact right now where your business is at, that you've got the greatest confidence as far as like, what, if I put my mind to this, I can make the most amount of progress with the least amount of effort. Now, it might be that it doesn't meet the ICE acronym fully. It might be it has the greatest impact. You've got the confidence in on it, but yet it's maybe going to take a little bit more energy than something else. But go in that order: greatest impact, greatest confidence, least amount of energy, okay, and effort. Okay, so you've picked that right now. Okay, so guys, we're already a third of the way there. All right, so remember 3 steps. So we've already done 1 step of this. All right, so again, a couple more minutes. Here we go. Number 2. I want you to do this right now, okay? So now that you've picked the area, again, in my example, I'm going to use quoting. You could say, okay, you could say, hey, in that period of 50 minutes, because remember, it's not 60, it's 50. Remember, 50 minutes to get the shit done, the sprint, 10 minutes of reflection. So in that 50 minutes, you might say, I could get 2, I got the stack of quotes. I could get 2 of these quotes done. Maybe it's 25 minutes and 25 minutes. Maybe one takes longer than the other. Maybe you might say, hey, there are a bunch of service request quotes that I've got to do, and I could get 5 done. Whatever that is, this next step, now that you've picked the area of the business, is to set the expectations so that you win, okay? There's nothing worse than allocating time to do something and you set yourself up for failure, right? Like, oh man, I'm going to get 18 quotes done. When you think about it, there's no way you're going to get those number of quotes done with my example, right? Again, I'm focusing on quotes. In that period of time, don't set yourself up for failure, okay? Set yourself up for success. I would actually think less than more. So if you think, hey man, I can get 3 to 4 quotes done in 50 minutes, say you're gonna get 2 done, okay? At least that builds momentum and it brings confidence, okay? Now, with that being said, okay, we're still in this as far as picking. You've picked the area. My example was quoting. You've now picked how many quotes you're gonna get done. Now we want to get even more granular and go like which quotes we want to get done. So if we said 2 within the 50 minutes, actually put a name to them. I'm going to get John Doe's quote done and Sarah Knapp's quote done. Okay, and I pick these because they're going to have the greatest impact. I need to get them done. Maybe they're doing a price selection. It's like Wednesday they're gonna do a selection of which contractor by Friday, so I got to get this into them, or the bid quote closes on Friday, whatever it is. But guys, like, put that into perspective, right? Get very specific with what you're specifically going to work on in those 50 minutes. Okay. So again, right, whatever it might be, okay. I'm going to use one other example here. I use quoting. Let's talk about, maybe it's kicking off a job, okay? Or you've got 2 jobs, 3 jobs kicking off right next week. You're going to sit down and you're going to gather the information as to, hey, here's the steps, here's the things I need to gather in order to, sit down and talk with my team regarding kicking off these jobs, okay? Whatever it is, get very, very specific. So right now on this podcast, if you've done number 1, number 2, you're 75% of the way there. The last piece, okay, the last piece of now that you've picked the specific area is we have to pick the specific time in which we're going to do this, okay? Is it going to be tomorrow at 9 o'clock? Is it going to be morning? Is it going to be afternoon? Is it going to be evening? Okay, because I know some of you guys right now, you have to put in extra time. Hey, that's where you're at. Let's get, if we're going to put in that extra time, let's at least put in the extra time so we can make progress so that it's actually giving back more than what we're putting into it. Okay. So when you look at this, you have to default when you're going to put in the 60 minutes, when you're going to do this 50-10 sprint. Okay. I want you to pick the time that you're going to do that, okay? And now that you've picked the time that you're going to do it and what day you're going to do it, if you're a morning person and you're more effective in the morning, most contractors and tradies are, then make sure that you use that time. If you're a 6 o'clock in the morning guy, 7 in the morning guy, use that time wisely, guys, because guess what? You want to pick a time whereby you're the most effective and you're going to have the least amount of interruptions, okay? That's the reality. I normally go to a coffee shop or I go out of the office. I like to change the environment. I like it to be good energy. Bring my set of headphones. I like listening to music when I'm focusing. Again, this is a 50-10 sprint for you, not for nobody else. And you've got to protect it, okay? All right, so number 3. It's now come time to do the 50-10 sprint, okay? Here's a couple of tips to make it super effective. When you're going to do this 50-10 sprint, okay, make sure you're bringing the right amount of information. If you're going to a coffee shop, maybe you got a file with all the information to do, these 2 quotes or whatever it is. Make sure you got all the information, okay? Another thing, make sure that you've let your team know that you're going to be busy. You're in a meeting. You don't have to say you're in a meeting with anybody. You're just going to be in a meeting, a very important meeting. And that meeting is with yourself, okay? Next thing you want guys to do is you want to make sure that you set a timer, okay? So that you maintain focus, okay? Remember I said earlier about like allocating time. If you got 2 quotes that you're doing in this 50-10 sprint, maybe it's 25-25, maybe one's 10 minutes, the other one's like 40 minutes. You want a timer so that you have a gauge of how long it's going to take you to do this, okay? And that you have a gauge of how long that you've been working on something. You'd be amazed at what happens because, listen, contractors and owners of contractor businesses are very focused on results. And I'll tell you what, when the clock is fucking ticking and you're focused in on, whatever it is that you've picked and selected, okay, for the first 50 minutes, you'd be amazed at what happens with that focus. You'd be amazed at how much more efficient you're going to be instead of being interrupted, right? So, turning off your phone, being, allocating time. The only thing that could ever interrupt you is like a 911. Either somebody's been hurt or somebody's died. Okay, I hate for that to happen, but like you have to protect your time with your life because listen, time is one of those things that you can never get back again. Okay, so guys, this is called the 50-10 sprint. My final little recipe to this to make this stick is this part. Throughout this process. Okay, throughout this podcast today, again, it's been a very short podcast. I want you to think about how did it feel to go, hey, I picked an area that I'm going to focus in on. Okay, I picked what I'm going to do with that time, and I've allocated time to do it. Holy shit, I'm actually getting better control of my time. Like, understand, guys, that you're doing it right now, that you have the ability to do it, okay? And understand that it's important to realize the positive emotions as you're doing something, because that's when the brain really puts crazy glue to making something stick, is when you emotionally are attached to it, okay? And my last little couple of pointers on this thing, okay, is we never get complete mastery of our time, but I like thinking from the concept of like always trying to master our time. And why do I say that? Because time changes, our life changes. Situations change, right? And we're constantly adapting, right? To our age, to our situation, okay? So the other couple of tips I'd give you is this. Don't expect this to go totally smoothly. Maybe it's going to go fucking kick ass for you. That's awesome, okay? But understand that you're always evolving this process. Understand that you might say to me, yeah, but coach, I don't know how long it's going to take me to do 2 or 3 quotes. Well, that's good that you're able to identify that right now, because we need to get good at estimating our time and how long it takes to do things, because this is a skill set not just learned for you. This is a skill set and a habit to be learned for your employees as well. And that brings up another point. This is not just a principle for business. 90% of principles that I found are principles for life, okay? The 50-10 sprint is also something you can do on the personal side, right? Like, use this for your business, use this for your team to learn, and for you to learn and apply at home, maybe to your kids, to your wife, to whatever, so you can get shit done, so you can be focused, right? So like, instead of like, hey honey, we got to sit down and talk about these 55 freaking things. No, man, let's sit down and we're going to focus in on this 50-10 sprint, okay? And the last of the last is this. Those last 10 minutes are so critical. And I've already been talking about them, right? To emotionally reflect, to mentally reflect, to logically reflect on what did you get accomplished, what didn't you get accomplished, maybe you got more accomplished, so that you can plan the next 50-10 sprint, okay? Make this a habit, okay? And, make sure that you recognize that right now in this podcast, you've already made progress in getting better control of your time. Now it's just a matter of doing it, okay? So you're 75% of the way there. Just do this sprint. Don't expect it to go perfect. Just try to set yourself up for success, as I talked about regarding limiting interruptions, creating, being in the right environment, and enjoy this process. Okay, guys. So sprint away to success. Okay, sprint to success. Okay, versus chaos. And I will see you guys on the flip side. This is another podcast, No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors. Use this stuff, guys. Apply it. Use this hack. Make it happen. Hey, get your team members to listen to this hack as well, and they can apply it and bring it to your business, bring it to your life, bring it to your family. And I will see you on another No Bullshit Podcast for Contractors coming up soon. And we'll talk to you guys later. Ciao. Hey, Rockstar, I hope that you enjoyed that one. I mean, if you did like this podcast, leave a review, leave a comment. This will help us a lot to keep you bringing the gold, allowing you to delegate, dominate, and deliver so you can take your contracting business to the next level. Now, make sure you subscribe, get the latest teachings and insights, and we will see you back here for another No Bullshit Podcast. No, seriously, no bullshit.